It was such a proud moment for Koreans to be able to watch Team Korea perform so well at the Olympics, and we're so honored to have you as the head of the delegation, Mr. Lee Kee-heung. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleased to meet you.
Well, I think it must be said, congratulations for such a well job done at this year's London Olympics.
Thank you.
감사합니다.
So 64 years after the 1984 London Olympics, we had it even more significant meaning for Team Korea to return to the place where we first started as an independent country. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the significance behind this?
예, 그렇습니다.
That's right. In 1948, before our government was established, our athletes attended the London Olympics with funds raised by citizens.
이 선배님들이 다녀오셨습니다. 그때는
Due to various constraints, it took them 21 days to travel to the United Kingdom. From here, they took a train to Busan, and from Busan, they traveled by ship via 9 countries, including Japan, Hong Kong, Thailand, India, and Iraq, to get to London. Today, our nation has grown economically to rank in the top 20, and on various fronts such as culture and industries, we've joined the ranks of the developed nations. Against this backdrop, the London Olympics was of great significance for us.
And now, after having to go through 9 countries, it's just a few hours of a plane ride. How long did it take this time?
The trip lasted about 10 hours, and it was direct, so we traveled in comfort.
The initial goal for Team Korea was to win 10 medals and rank within the top 10, but we did so much better than even expected. What were some of the factors behind this success?
Well, our success is largely thanks to a combination of our athletes' fighting spirit, people's support and encouragement, as well as the government's active support.
함께 아우러져서 좋은 결과를 만들어냈다고 생각을 합니다.
Not just the training of our athletes within the short period of time in between Olympics, but early education when it comes to sports. This is such an important thing we're seeing that's contributing to Koreans doing so well athletically. What did you say?
그렇습니다.
Right. Our athletes are discovered at a young age and trained through youth championships at middle and high schools.
또이 선수들이
They're then selected for the national team through national championships. Such training and championships play crucial roles in grooming our athletes.
There were some sports that we saw such a major boost this year. I think most notably fencing was one of them.
That's correct. In sports such as fencing and shooting, our athletes endured hellish training. In particular, our fencers went abroad often to train and participated in many international competitions. Our athletes gave their all, especially in the wake of incidents such as that involving fencer Shinaram.
Aside from this, Team Korea also did very well in the sports or the fields that involve balls. I think most notably soccer. Japan and Korea went up against each other for the bronze medal. And anytime it's Japan and Korea, being that we're such close neighbors, it's an exciting time for Korean sports fans. But I think even the most optimistic ones were very pleasantly surprised with the results.
In soccer, Coach Hong Myung-bo and our Taeguk warriors trained rigorously in line with their aim of making it to the semifinals and securing a medal. In particular, they were determined to beat Japan. So they trained accordingly, which led to our excellent outcome. Also in women's volleyball and handball, despite injuries, our players were determined to win, and their fighting spirit was evident, which led to good results.
I think seeing from what you're saying that mentality of having to win plays a big role because we did see such positive results.
It's been said that the body follows the mind. Had it not been for our athletes' resolve, enthusiasm, and fighting spirit, we wouldn't have achieved the result that we did.
당한 상황에서도
Even with injuries, they stuck with their guns. Though they did not win medals, they performed superbly by making it into the semifinals.
토해낸 것입니다.
The match between Korea and Japan, it was right before 광복절, that's August 15th, which made it all the more meaningful, I think, for Koreans to have done so well in that match. What was it like right before the before moments of the match?
그렇습니다. 광복절이고
Right, it was close to our Independence Day, which is historically significant, and our opponent was Japan. So our players fought with all their might.
생각을 합니다. 예.
Let's talk a little bit about a grayer issue, and not as pleasant. We did have that big controversy with our athlete Park Jung-woo after the winning of the bronze medal. He held up a sign that said "Dokdo is our territory," and was stripped of the medal. And there's still a lot of controversy over this. How is the situation proceeding right now regarding this matter?
그것은 아주
The incident was not premeditated at all.
관중이 던져준
The sign came from a spectator, and it just happened.
허기 때문에 우리가
There was no political intention, nor any other ulterior motive.
IOC라든지 또
So by carefully explaining the circumstances to the IOC and FIFA, we're hoping for a rational solution.
방향으로 결론이 날 것으로 저희는 그렇게 기대하고 있습니다.
So how will that be done exactly?
지금 현재 우리
The Korea Football Association has made our case with FIFA.
그러한 내용을 충분히 설명을 했습니다. 실효적으로도 독도는
Dokdo is our land effectively and under our control.
우리 땅이라고 하는 것에 대해서
So calling it ours shouldn't really be an issue.
우리 선수들이 그런 문제를
Also, it wasn't a calculated move. A spectator had thrown the sign to our player. It was close to Independence Day, and he acted on impulse. So we're hoping that the case will be resolved accordingly.
We can't just talk about the positives. Just like there were moments of unexpected victory, there were also moments of unexpected defeats as well. As the head of the delegation, what was going on through your mind during those moments?
These days, we're all evenly matched. That is, several countries are just as good in what used to be our forte, such as taekwondo and archery. As you've seen, they're just as good as we are. Also, Japan may be the birthplace of judo, but now there's no longer a shoo-in for medals. Japan failed to win a gold in judo at the latest games.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising. Maybe just on a side note, what kind of countries are stepping up as a powerhouse in taekwondo?
예를 들어서 이란이라든지 또는 스페인,
For instance, Iran, Spain, and Italy are on par with us.
외국에 나가 있는 지도자들이 다 한국 사람.
Many coaching staff overseas now are Korean. So meetings where sports competitions such as taekwondo and archery turn into reunions of Koreans. Since our people and know-how have been shared, skills are about the same.
Especially in the beginning of the Olympics, when the games first started, we saw a number of bad calls or controversial calls being made over some of the sports. What was the situation like, I guess, on the scene there during these times?
There were cases of bad rulings, but some of them were caused by misunderstandings, while others were just wrong. Regarding swimmer Park Tae-hwan, it made no sense that he, a world-class swimmer, would make a false start for leverage in the qualifying round. This call was overturned, so it didn't become a major issue. In saying this, we can't help but think, had Park not gone through the ordeal, he could have captured a gold. With regard to Jo Jun-ho and fencing, especially in fencing, the International Federation admitted to procedural problems involving a technical error and an inexperienced timekeeper. but it ruled in favor of the judge's decision, which unfortunately went against Shinharam. Luckily, we won the silver medal in the group division. And in wrestling, a ruling by 3 judges is never overturned. But in judo, the referee's director can overrule a ruling by 3 judges. It can be overturned. Such variations in regulations cause misunderstandings among people. But overall, we tried our best to handle issues accordingly.
And like you said, especially in the case of Park Tae-hwan, our swimmer there, that kind of psychological stress, a lot of people say, played a big factor in just missing that gold medal very closely. I guess as the head or as the role of other coaches, what was done to try to alleviate that psychological stress?
We immediately filed an appeal with the International Federation. We told Park Tae-hwan that it wasn't over and that he should warm up for the next round. Also, our officials were on site for his training.
It couldn't have been easy. It must have been devastating. These athletes, they poured their lives, especially the times in between each Olympics, into perfecting their craft.
That's correct. To compete in the Olympics, our athletes train from 4 to 5 years to as long as 10 years. Lee In-jong in Taekwondo finally made it to the Olympics after 10 years on his 3rd try. On any given day, the athletes train, performing hundreds of the same moves, and exercise self-control. Such athletes should not be wronged. So our federation and the sports association do what we can to prevent mishaps. To this end, we also train our staff.
Is it true that other countries, other foreign press, media sources, they also raise questions on some of these bad calls?
There were some controversies this time, largely due to the fact that volunteers help run the competitions. This should be amended. Japan had the results overturned in gymnastics. Several other countries also raised issues with processes and rulings. These should be handled accordingly by the IOC and the international federations.
Let's talk a little bit about the Korea House. This was set up in London, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about the role and how, I guess it was the first time, if I'm not mistaken, so how it helped the athletes.
We had great reviews. We set up Korea House to promote Korea to the world, not just through participating in the games, but by setting up booths for both the local and visitors dedicated to the Korea Tourism Organization, key conglomerates such as Samsung and LG, as well as upcoming international sports championships, including the 2013 World Rowing Championships, the 2014 Incheon Asian Games, and the 2015 Gwangju Summer Universiade.
Now, we would think that you're probably at ease with the London Olympics being over, but I'm sure you have to already start thinking about the next Olympics, 2016 in Rio de Janeiro. First of all, what kind of preparations, or are preparations already being made, and what does the future of sports or Team Korea look like? What are our goals for that Olympics?
For the next Olympics in Brazil, preparations must start now. We're on the opposite side of the globe from Brazil, which means some 30 hours of travel by plane and a big time difference. We would need to set up training camp in advance, as we had done for the recent games. Also, for similar successes, we would need to provide necessary support to our athletes who are actually declining in numbers. And we should set up a system to help train and nurture our athletes on prolonged scientific and systematic basis.
So overall, can we expect Team Korea to be a big winner at the 2016 Olympics?
That's right. Koreans are known for our dynamism, diligence, and perseverance. Given this, we can expect great results from the next Olympics as well.
Well, it was a very exciting time, I'm sure not just for Korea, but internationally speaking, watching the London Olympics. Thank you so much for your dedication and, of course, for your time in this interview.
Thank you.